Happy New Year! It's our first So What of 2023. How exciting! Thank you all for joining me here today on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Let me know where you're watching, where you're coming from, and if you're new to So What. I'm always excited to see new faces, but of course, excited to see everyone who I recognize in the comments. Make sure you are posting your questions, comments, saying hello in the comments or in the live chat, because as long as you do so, you are automatically eligible to win a gift today. Sulky is giving away our brand new Conversation Heart Machine Embroidery collection. So that is what I'm going to be talking about today. I use these super cute embroidery designs to create a couple of projects that might just inspire you to get your Valentine gifting on. I know we just got through the holidays, but there are more holidays to come. And, you know, Valentine's Day is kind of a cute one, right? There's lots of fabrics out there to be had. I was just at the fabric store the other day, and the Valentine fabrics are just everywhere. And I really had a tough time deciding on some fabrics to showcase in the coming weeks. So I hope that you find inspiration from today's projects and, of course, our brand new machine embroidery designs. So let me talk about those momentarily, because there are a lot of different options when you go to sulky.com and you look up the Conversation Hearts designs. So I wanted to kind of give you the lowdown so you know what you're in for. First off, you can grab up the entire collection, which is a collection of 20 machine embroidery designs, and they're all in this cute Conversation Heart style. Now, there are 10 designs in sort of the traditional Conversation Heart style. So it looks kind of like typewriter writing, you know, on the cute little Conversation Heart. Then we also have a little bit more modern take on the Conversation Heart designs. So the entire collection, again, comes with 20 designs, 10 in the traditional style and 10 in the modern style. Or you can grab up just the modern style and get 10 designs in this style that has these cute little sewing themed sayings on them. Love you so in love, you so fine, etc. Everything that you see here. If the traditional style is more to your liking, you can grab up just the traditional style machine embroidery collection as well. So you can see the lettering is a little bit smaller here, and it's in more of that kind of typewriter-ish font. Now, I should mention that you can also grab up the machine embroidery palette. This comes with 10 spools of Sulky rayon thread and all 20 designs. So you'll get the 20 designs plus all the thread that is showcased in them, which is featured here. All of these great colors that you're going to need to have on hand for your Valentine's Day decor projects, gifties, etc. So you might as well grab up the palette. You'll have these 10 thread spools as well as all 20 designs to kind of mix and match and do with what you choose. So those are kind of your options for the Conversation Heart machine embroidery product that we just launched. And the winner today, one lucky viewer who is watching, commenting, giving me those great emojis, all of those good things, will get the entire machine embroidery collection of all 20 designs. So the winner could be you. You could be ringing in the new year with an entirely new embroidery collection to play with. So super fun. All right, so I went with both the traditional design and the modern design for two different projects that I want to show you all today. Before we dive into that, though, who joined me for our New Year's Eve sew-along? Anybody out there? I recognize some of your names, so I know some of you were along for the ride on New Year's Eve. I'm still kind of reeling from that experience. It was such a good time. And a lot of you have been with us since the first sew along in 2020. Was it 2020? It must have been. I know we were kind of in the height of the pandemic, so it was really cool to spend New Year's Eve in a safe way in our homes doing something that we love. And we really continued on that tradition, and it was just so much fun. I got to contact the winners of the door prizes this morning, which is one of my favorite things to do. I'm glad we have a winner every week on So What, because I think it's more fun to contact the winner than it is to actually receive the prize sometimes. In my case, definitely, since I'm not eligible to win the prizes, right? But at any rate, such a good time. My studio is still pretty wrecked from the day because, as you can imagine, when we're going on at such a pace to keep everyone engaged and keep the excitement up and the energy going, things just start flying around. So I apologize in advance for the absolute mess that my studio's in, but you know, creative people, I think we're allowed to have a messy area, right? It drives me nuts though, personally. But at any rate, if you missed our New Year's Eve sew along, you can still register for it and watch the event from start to finish at your convenience. It is now available as an on-demand event. Once you register, it'll take you right to the event page. There's a viewing box. You just hit play. You can watch and see what we all did on New Year's Eve. You can pause, fast forward, rewind, and when you register, you will receive the Smith Organizer pattern from Sally Tomato, brand new pattern created just for this event. And you will also get 5 embroidery designs from Urban Threads and Embroidery Library to embellish your Smith Organizer. If you don't have machine embroidery capabilities, I also showed off this version of the Smith Organizer where we added all kinds of beautiful thread to that front flap. And then I gave options for adding decorative stitches elsewhere on the pattern as well. So this is the non-embroidery version that we created and sewed along together. And then this is just one version of one of the embroidery designs that I showcased. Here's another embroidery design on the inside zipper pocket, Enjoy the Journey, which was designed and digitized specifically for this event as well. So lots of exclusives. You know, everybody got a chance to experience on New Year's Eve. So yes, all right. Sharon says, the New Year's event was so good. I watched the whole presentation. Excellent. Thank you so much. And Sharon, I did see your email floating around the office today. So I want to thank you all for sending in your feedback after we do these events. We really try hard to appease everyone, which, as you know, with an event that has more than 1,000 registrations, people with different skill levels coming to the party, people who have different machine brands, makes and models, capabilities. It's really challenging to come up with something that everyone's going to love. And we just have to go with our gut sometimes. And so when we get that great feedback from you, it is so appreciated. You know, oftentimes you only hear the bad stuff. You only hear the complaints because, you know, when people are dissatisfied, they really feel the need to tell you, which is also welcomed. We want all kinds of feedback so we can continue to improve. But a lot of the times you don't get that great feedback because when people are satisfied, they just go about their day. And I get that 100%. But at any rate, we really appreciate all of your comments. As usual, we are already thinking about next year and what we can bring you and how we can improve on the past 3 years of New Year's Eve sew-alongs. So, and of course, you know, look ahead because we will be still offering you great education in 2023 on our Sulky education platform. I have a couple of, Easter egg surprises, if you will, in my sewing room right now for some things that will be coming soon. So hopefully you can take a look around and kind of get the idea for that. But at any rate, we have lots and lots in store for you in 2023 and are so excited to continue to bring you great education, products, all of that good stuff to inspire your creativity. All right. Amber says, I was a total novice, so it took me longer to finish, but my New Year's Eve project is finished. Fantastic. I love that. I was going to give you a round of applause, but I lost my sound effects. Hold on. Here we go. And that's kind of the whole idea behind the sew along, is to present something where we can work together, ask questions, and over the course of the 4-hour event, even if you don't finish right along with us, which many of you did not, and I get it, it's hard to follow along. Again, we're trying to keep the energy up and the pace moving forward. Dead air is difficult for people who are live streaming. I will say you just start to get this panic. So you just want to keep it moving along. So that's the great thing about the Sulky education platform is once our live events end, you can always go back and start from the beginning, find a place where you want to review, or maybe where you got caught up or, something happened with your machine and you had to stop. You can always rewind, start from there, and continue moving forward. If you didn't get all of your kit components or you didn't purchase a kit and you wanted to watch before, gathering your materials, once you have everything cut out, ready to go, you can go back and watch from the beginning, the middle, etc. So it's a really, really great resource to have. All right. Looking forward to today's event. All right, so we better get started. Oh, Suzanne says, I look forward to all of your live events. I learned so much. Fantastic. All right. Let's see. Someone said they want a hint about what I'm talking about for what is in my sewing room. Well, if you can, not my pencil sharpener, if you can figure out what this is, for all of you who watch So What, you know what is back here. But at any rate, we are going to be doing some more serger education. I'm really excited about it because I can't get enough of it. I use my serger a lot, but I really wouldn't consider myself a total expert on sergers. I use my sewing machine every single day. My serger comes off of this shelf, maybe, 2 or 3 times a month. So I don't really think I'm getting the most out of it. So I'm going to be joining along with you to expand my serger education for 2023. It's one of my New Year's sewing resolutions. If you have a New Year's sewing resolution, put it in the live chat or in the comments below, because I would like to know what you want to learn more of in 2023 so that we can cater our content to meet your needs. So let me know. All right. And to finish all my work in progress projects. Yes, that's a big one, right? That's why I like a sew along too, where hopefully by the end of the day or the couple days after the sew along, you can finish it up and have that confidence that you've already tackled something in 2023 and finished it start to finish. All right, so let's get to today's project. Again, I am going to be focusing on the brand new Sulky Conversation Hearts collection. I just think this is so cute and cheeky and a nod to our love of sewing and crafting. So these designs are really great for your sewing friends, guild members, even for yourself, something to hang in your sewing room for, Valentine's Day decor, etc. So I created, first off, an adorable little envelope clutch. And the first idea for this project was something to hold all of my kids' Valentines that they get at school. So it kind of started out as a kid-friendly project. And then while I was choosing fabrics, it kind of morphed into a more sort of adult-friendly project when I decided to go with cork fabric. And all of a sudden, instead of just a simple fabric or felt envelope, it became like a clutch that you can, take out and about with you, go grab a coffee with, etc. You could even add a little hanging loop to this front flap and sort of carry it on your wrist. But all that to say, just like with everything, both of my girls want one, and they want to use this instead of creating a shoebox or something like that for all of their Valentines that they get at school. So lots of different ways you can interpret this project. As usual, that's kind of what So What is all about, is just giving you the inspiration and then having you take that further and make it your own. So I decided to use cork fabric because I have this random rectangle of cork fabric on hand. Now, if you want to use a different fabric, you can even use a canvas, denim, and interfaced quilting cotton would work as well. Something a little bit sturdier. I also added a little layer of fusible fleece or even a low loft batting that you can kind of spray base to your pieces. That gives it a little more structure as well. And let's see, is someone asking about the dimensions? Why do I never have that near me? Let me measure this guy. And I will say, this is my prototype, and I tweaked the pattern a little bit so that you'll have a little bit more room along your flap edge for your embroidery design. Now, if you don't mind that your embroidery design's right up against that flap edge, it does look kind of cute, which is why I decided to just go with it. Also, I didn't have another piece of fabulous cork that was this color, which is really what I wanted for the bag. So lesson learned, do a test stitch out, not on your fancy cork fabric, but now that I've done all the testing for you, you can head on over to the Sulky blog, get all the instructions, the dimensions, we're going to create a pattern, all of that good stuff, and that's what I'm going to go over right here. But if you would like the full tutorial, it's in the description of today's post. You can click right on over to the blog post and get the full tutorial. If you're not seeing that link, you can click on the little See More button. It will pop out and you can click right on over to the Sulky blog and grab the full tutorial, as well as get links for everything I'm talking about today. So our finished dimensions of this guy is about 11 and a quarter wide. And then once it's all folded up, it's about 6.5 inches tall. So can hold a lot of things and can be as fancy or as basic as you want. The addition of our little heart embroidery along this, envelope flap, I think is adorable. And you can see my top stitching goes right around the design, basically because I didn't have any room to go underneath the design. But after doing it, I kind of fell in love with this look. So that's an option for you as well when you're doing the final top stitching of the bag. Arlene is saying, where do you find cork fabric? Cork fabric is more readily available, I think, than it has been in the past, even like 3-4 years. My cork fabric is from Sally Tomato. Love Sally Tomato for cork fabrics and faux leathers. They're really my go-to because I know about their quality of, I was going to say ingredients, their quality control and where they source their cork and faux leather. So also, I've just sewn with it so much, I'm really familiar with working with it. You can also find cork fabric at Fabric Funhouse. They make a pretty good quality cork fabric. You want to make sure that your cork fabric is, I want to just say is good quality, but then I know people are going to ask, how do we know it's good quality? If you take cork fabric and kind of fold it, if it peels up along that fold line, it's terrible quality cork. And as soon as you sew through it, it's going to be perforated. Or over time, and not a lot of time, it's going to start peeling away from your seam lines, from your top stitching, from your embroidery, and we don't want that. So look for cork that might have a backing to it, a nice soft, almost felty backing to it. And really look in the description of the cork fabric to see kind of what weight it is and how many stitch penetrations it can withstand if that's available to you. So you can find a lot of it in independent quilt shops even. It's just a super popular fabric. All right. So our first step, as I mentioned, we're going to create our own pattern. And this is super simple because we're just doing an envelope closure. That means our inside seams, when we fold up the lower third to create the pocket of our envelope, those seams are exposed. Now, the way we're going to construct it, the seams are going to be in the wrong side, so covered by the lining, so not really exposed. I really don't know how to describe it, but we'll get there and you'll see. So although you don't have any raw edges, your closed edges will be exposed. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening to my brain right now. Please keep following along. All right, so we're going to create our envelope pattern. And we start off with a rectangle of fabric, and you can see I've made some markings on here. I'm going to make this larger so you can see my markings. So this is my revised pattern, which allows for more room below your embroidery design, more room for the top stitching, more room for the magnetic snap that we're adding, which I added kind of as an afterthought. When this started as a envelope clutch for just housing Valentines, I wasn't going to add a closure at all. I was just going to have the envelope flap just flip over the front. But I decided to add a magnetic snap once I made it out of cork so that it could be closed nicely and, have a very tidy finish. So this is the revised pattern, and you can see you can start with about a 22-inch long rectangle, and that'll pretty much get you there to draft this pattern. All the dimensions are in the blog post, so you can grab those up and start drafting your pattern. I taped together about 4 sheets of printer paper, and that's what I used to draft my pattern. So I went 20.5 inches from the center point along the left edge to the center point along the right edge. And that's the length of the pattern piece, including that triangle flap. Then you can see along the upper and lower edges, I measured 15.5 inches from the left edge, and that denotes the sort of fold of my flap. Then I folded the whole thing in thirds just to make sure that my flap was going to, have adequate coverage over the top of the clutch. So that's why you can see those fold lines there. It's actually not quite in thirds, as you can see. But again, all the dimensions and measurements for drafting this pattern are in the blog post. So you can see the diagonal edges of the flap are about 7 7/8 inches. Once you connect your 15.5-inch long lines to that 20.5-inch long triangle point. Karen is asking, will raw edges be exposed in the interior of the bag? So I know what I was saying was confusing. No raw edges will be exposed. We're going to close up all the edges, but then when we fold up the lower edge to create our clutch pocket, if you will, we are going to sew along our closed seams. So when you turn it right side out, you won't have any raw edges showing from the inside, but you'll basically have 2 finished seams instead of 2 raw edges showing. Okay. Karen is also asking, what is the width? And I can see I did not measure that on this piece. So you will have to go to blog.sulky.com and get that. But the finished width is about 11.25 inches. And with our seam allowance, I want to say it's probably 12 inches. But please go to the blog post to get the correct dimensions, because since I did not mark that on this photo, I just can't remember it off the top of my head. I apologize. I should have had that right next to me. So, okay. Don's asking, could you round all the corners? I would, you know, you could round your flap corners if you wanted to. You could take a little thread spool and put it along your pattern piece and kind of just mark around it to round those corners. But don't round these corners of, you know, the part you're going to fold up to create your pocket, because then they're not going to match up and it won't be as strong right there. But you could certainly round your triangle point of the flap. Absolutely. All right, so once you have your pattern created, we're going to take our cork fabric, and I start marking my pattern on the wrong side of the cork. So you can see this is Sally Tomato cork because they put a nice lightweight felt backing on their cork, and it is stamped with their logo. I really love working with their cork. I've had great success with it, and the longevity of it and the embroiderability of it, I may have just made up a word, is really, really great. Okay, so we're going to mark our pattern piece onto the back side of our cork, or whatever fabric that you're using for the outer. And then I also marked off my flap. And this is going to help me in my embroidery placement. And yes, I'm marking on the wrong side because I don't want to deal with removing the marks on the cork right side. Cork is not machine washable, but you can certainly spot clean it. And if you're using a chalk marking pen, you can easily just wipe that away with a little bit of, you know, a damp paper towel or something. It usually comes right off. But in this case, I'm marking on the wrong side. And then when I go to embroider my bag, I'm going to show you how I managed to get perfect placement in the hoop by marking on the wrong side. All right. So now I have my flap marked off, and I also marked my seam allowance. This is so that my embroidery design doesn't go into my seam allowance. And had I done that on my first go around, I would have had more room beyond my embroidery design to account for my seam allowance. But it does get super close to that seam allowance, and I still like that look. You could even have the point of your little conversation heart. This one is kind of tilted to the side just for a different look, but you could have it going straight up and down and have that corner of your heart matching the corner of your envelope closure as well. So just some other options. So mark off your seam allowance, and then you can kind of see that I marked my embroidery design first, And then I thought I better mark my seam allowance. So I erased using just a little brush on the end of my chalk pencil. I erased my embroidery design outline or placement and decided I better mark off my seam allowance. So then I marked that off, and then I marked a box on the wrong side of the cork to denote my embroidery placement. So these designs are about, give or take, 2 inches square. Obviously they are heart-shaped, but they fit within a 2-inch square, every single one of the 20 designs. So I marked a 2-inch square where I wanted my embroidery, taking my seam allowances and all that into account. And then I marked a box on the wrong side. I also marked the center cross marks within that box. That's where I want my embroidery to go, obviously on the right side though, but I'm marking the wrong side for a reason. Okay, so now we're going to take our design, get it into our embroidery machine, and if you have the option to baste around the design and put that into your machine before you tell it to start, it might be a little bit different depending on your machine make and model, or you might have only the option to baste around the hoop. That's helpful as well. If you have different placement pointer tools that you like to use, maybe you grabbed up our Sulky placement stickers during the New Year's Eve event. This was a freebie that we gave away as a PDF for everybody who registered. You print these placement stickers out onto a sheet of Sulky Sticky Fabri-Solvi or Sulky Stick and Stitch. Those are the 2 products that will fit into your printer. And you want to print this PDF onto the fabric-like side of the stabilizer sheet. And this will last you a long time. The great thing is, if you don't accidentally stitch over them, they are also reusable. So once I get everything placed properly in the hoop and remove my sticker, I just kind of put it on my machine or on the table next to my machine, and I can get quite a few uses out of them. So it's a really cool placement tool. You can see there's arrows going up, so you can make sure to orient your design according to where your arrow is as well. So it gives you a lot of tips, tricks, hints for that perfect placement. And when you're embroidering on these more expensive fabrics like cork fabric and faux leathers, really important to take the majority of your time to make sure you have proper placement. All right, so maybe you have a different sticker that you like to use. There are these snowman stickers, they call them out there. Maybe those come with your machine. Maybe your machine has a camera on it where you can adjust where your design is going to go specifically right onto the fabric while you're looking at it. Those are super fancy and pretty cool machines too. So figure out how you want to denote your perfect placement. You can also use some strips of sticky wash away, sticky Fabri-Solvi stabilizer and create a vertical and horizontal cross mark on the right side of your cork to denote your center of your design and your vertical and horizontal axis, so you can line that up with your hoop markings when you get it in the hoop. But this is how I chose to do it. I did the baste around the design function, and we are not going to baste around the design on the fabric. We are only going to baste around the design on the stabilizer. So we are not going to hoop this. We are going to hoop only our stabilizer. And for this, I used Sulky Stiffy Stabilizer. It is a medium to heavyweight tearaway stabilizer, and it worked really great for this particular design because look at all the fill stitches in this design. Typically when we're working with like faux leather, you do not want to use a design with this much fill to it. It is all thread in here. If you were to stitch this design out onto faux leather, the faux leather would buckle and pucker around the design no matter how much stabilizer you had on there, because it's not a woven fabric. So there aren't sort of holes in the fabric structure to accommodate all of that additional thread work. See where I'm going with it? So what happens is, even if it looks beautiful in the hoop, as soon as you take it out and remove that stabilizer that has been holding all that fabric in place, all of a sudden it shrinks up around the design and wants to go back to where it started. So this design is not really going to work with faux leather unless you stitch out the design only onto stabilizer, then remove the stabilizer and then apply it to the faux leather as a patch. Then you could use it. But on the cork is a little bit more forgiving in this regard than faux leather. You know, if you think about the structure of cork, it does have kind of open areas, right? It's kind of spongy. So it can accept a little bit more thread than something like a faux leather or even real leather would. All right, so that's why this design works on the cork, but wouldn't work, on something else. That being said, we still don't want to hoop the cork, and any needle holes on cork are permanent. So we're not going to baste. We're not going to do the basting function on the cork. We're doing it only on the stabilizer. Then we are going to get our cork fabric in place on the stabilizer, and then we're going to embroider the design. So we're doing hoopless embroidery, which means we are not hooping the cork. We are hooping only the stabilizer. And we are doing this first function, the baste around the design, only on the stabilizer. Everybody with me? All right. So I used a magnetic hoop for this. You certainly do not have to. And in the case of a magnetic hoop, you would be able to hoop the cork with the stabilizer. But that doesn't allow me to get my perfect placement using this technique. And for the most part, a lot of people don't have magnetic hoops. So the technique I'm showing you is for whatever hoop you want to use, magnetic or a regular spring-loaded hoop that is standard issue with your embroidery machine. So in my magnetic hoop, I have a sheet of Sulky Stiffy stabilizer. And you can see I've done the baste around the design function right onto the stabilizer itself. Now this gives me that 2-inch box that I marked on the wrong side of my cork fabric. So now what I'm going to do is spray that little flap area with a little bit of Sulky KK2000. This is our temporary spray adhesive that is super great, doesn't gum up the needle. It's going to allow us to do hoopless embroidery without using sticky stabilizer. So we're going to spray our spray our cork fabric on the wrong side. And you can see my little box that I marked with my white chalk pencil and those horizontal cross marks. So now I'm going to take that flap and I'm going to match up my boxes. So my marked box lower edge along the flap matches up with the lower edge of my basting box that I sewed right to the stabilizer. Everybody with me? All right, then make sure your horizontal and vertical cross marks are aligned with your inner hoop ring. If you're using a magnetic hoop, you will need to apply your hoop stickers. Mine are not showing on this quite yet. I was a little eager to use the hoop and didn't put my stickers on it quite yet. But at any rate, use all of your placement tools, markings, etc. to make double and triple sure that your design is where you want it and you have enough seam allowance along that point so that your design isn't going to get caught in it or in your snap area. All right. So once we have that positioned, here I am showing you that center horizontal mark is right along the center of that basting box. You can mark that with a pencil or pen as well. After you do your basting box, you can mark a little horizontal and vertical cross mark and match those up as well. All right. Then we are just going to start embroidering our adorable Conversation Heart machine embroidery design. And this 2-inch design just fits so nicely along that envelope flap. And you want to make sure that you are clipping your jump threads with each thread change. These designs all have 3 threads, I believe. So you want to be sure to be clipping those as you move along so they don't get caught in the needle or in your presser foot in the subsequent stitches. And really your jump threads are going to be with the lettering. Now, some tips on the lettering designs. Now, I sewed these all in Sulky rayon thread, and the lettering came out beautifully. This is the traditional style of Conversation Heart. You might want to go with the more modern style. This is the next project we're going to be talking about. All up to you. It's also recommended when you are doing machine embroidery with lettering designs that are this small, that Sulky poly light thread can be a really great choice for lettering. It is a 60 weight thread, excuse me, and it does work with these designs. There's still adequate coverage with the satin stitching, but it just gives you a little bit crisper lettering that really pops, that you can read really well. This size lettering with the rayon thread works great, which is why we included that in the embroidery palette. I'm going to actually measure the letters. They're about a 1/4 inch tall, the traditional letters. The modern letters are a little bit larger. They are about 5/8, 1/2 inch tall. So anything less than a 1/4 inch, you want to use that poly light thread for your lettering to make it really readable and nice and crisp. Since this was about a 1/4 inch, the rayon thread works great as well. All right, so now we're going to remove our stabilizer. And now I remember I actually used 2 layers of Sulky Stiffy Stabilizer. I apologize for not remembering that until I got to this image. I was really focused on New Year's Eve for the weekend, so I'm having to switch gears here to Valentine's Day. So I apologize that I forgot this step, but I did use 2 layers of that Sulky Stiffy Stabilizer. And that's because of the density of the design. I really wanted all those stitches to be supported and nothing to happen to my beautiful cork fabric. So now I'm removing that stabilizer 1 layer at a time and cleaning up those jump threads along the back of the embroidery. There I go with the 2nd layer of stabilizer, just removing that, and it removes so cleanly from the edge, even though it's a heavier weight stabilizer. All right, so now we've got to do some markings for our magnetic snap. And, you know, way back when I was creating lots of zipper pouches for a webinar that we were doing with So Can She. And if you missed that, it's a really, really great zipper pouch tutorial. But at any rate, at that time, I grabbed up like 100 pack of magnetic snaps. And so it's really easy for me to just dive into my stash, grab up a magnetic snap. It makes it so, you know, it gives it such a professional finish. Something as simple as this. You just add a magnetic snap and all of a sudden it's like a boutique bag. So think about those things when you're deciding on closures. You know, you could certainly use a simple Velcro dot if you're making this a more casual thing that maybe is only going to be used on Valentine's Day for those Valentine swaps at school, something like that. But I love a magnetic snap, and it just really, they're just so simple to insert and use. Even simpler, I think, than a Velcro dot, because those need to be sewn in no matter if they have a sticky back or not. Am I right? They just don't last. So I went with magnetic snap. So here I am marking the placement of the magnetic snap along the edge that's opposite the fold. And all the dimensions for how far up to measure for that snap are in the blog post. So I chose to put the female side along this portion of the clutch, and then the male side is along the flap edge. So you're going to mark your snap placement on both your cork fabric and your lining fabric. Now, I want to mention that your lining fabric snap placement is going to be different according to the instructions on the blog. You can see my magnetic snap is dangerously close to the edge of my envelope flap. And so I did do some modifications to the pattern so that that wouldn't be the case, and there would be greater clearance so that you could add your top stitching and stitch your project without the risk of your needle hitting that snap. So this photo is a little bit deceiving, but I wanted to show it to you regardless because it shows you how to mark for your snap placement. Your snap comes with a little washer for both sides of the snap, and that washer is what you're going to use for your placement. And then also the prongs of your magnetic snap will go through that washer, allowing you to attach it to the fabric pieces. All right, so we're going to mark our magnetic snap on our lining along that flap edge, and then on our cork along the opposite edge. Oh, I guess I forgot a couple of images, so I'm just going to explain it to you from this point on. I apologize for that. Okay, so once you've marked for your magnetic snaps, you're going to insert them, and your magnetic snaps are likely going, excuse me, to come with instructions. However, what you will do after marking is you are going to slice down the little vertical areas that you've marked on your snap placement. So you will remove this washer and then slice down those two little vertical lines. And I like to use an Olfa touch knife for this. It's like a small little X-Acto knife, and they are super awesome. We included one in our mystery boxes not long ago, so some of you are lucky enough to have one already. If you don't, you can grab one up at sulky.com. They are super inexpensive, and I use it for so many things, and it's great for cork and faux leather fabrics, for little markings for straps, magnetic snaps, and the like. So that's what I use to slice down those little, tiny little marks to make sure that I don't go far beyond those marks. If you do, you could have fraying of your fabric. It could go beyond your snap, and then you're in trouble and you need a new piece. So I kind of caution against using a seam ripper to slice down those little vertical lines, but you can do it if you're being really, really careful. It's just, for me, I always just have a little heavy hand with things, and I tend to go beyond the line if I'm using scissors or a seam ripper. So I really love the Olfa touch knife for that. All right, so you're going to slice down those lines, and you're going to position either your female or male snap in. The little prongs from the snap are going to go into those vertical lines. Then you're going to put your washer on the wrong side through those same lines, and then you're going to bend the prongs back so that your washer is on one side and your snap is on the right side. Okay? Now our female snap and male snap are attached to our lining and our cork pieces, and now we can assemble the whole thing. So you're kind of going to assemble this like you're creating a pillow almost. All right. So we're going to take our outer cork piece with the embroidery, and the snap along the straight edge. And we're going to position our lining right sides together against the cork. So our flap edges are matching and our straight edges are matching. And you're going to stitch the entire perimeter. Okay? You want to leave an opening for turning along one of the long edges so that it is the most inconspicuous. You don't want it along that left edge because you might be able to see that as you're opening and shutting the bag. We want a nice clean edge along that side. So we're going to sew it right sides together, leaving an opening for turning. Then you're going to turn your entire thing right side out through that opening. Use a little, you do want to clip your corners a little bit too so that you can get nice crisp corners. That is, unless you are rounding your corner of your flap, as someone suggested. So make sure it's nice and flat, and then kind of just take your hand and roll along the seam to make it nice and flat. You can also use a seam roller if you have one of those, because you don't really want to touch an iron, a hot iron, to this cork fabric. You know, some of the corks have a coating, or the coloration to it can be harmed by the heat of the iron. So, you know, I really caution against ironing at all, but I know the folks at Sally Tomato say that you can iron it from the felt backing side if you have a little bit of creasing from, you know, the shipping process or something like that. But always from the right side, never touching the iron to the cork. I just steer clear of the iron altogether and use a seam roller, especially for things like this. So once that's nice and flat and you have folded your opening seam allowances toward the wrong side, use some wonder clips along your opening, and then you're going to top stitch your entire long clutch pattern piece. All right. When you top stitch, you're going to close the opening, you know, that you just clipped shut. And again, when I top stitched and I was top stitching the flap, I went down and around, leaving a little bit of border around my embroidery design. Really cute. Now yours is going to have more fabric underneath that design. So you will be able to top stitch underneath if you like that look better. But again, this is my prototype, so it's got some flaws. But at any rate, you'll top stitch the entire thing. And now you have this rectangle with a little triangle flap piece to it. So now what we're going to do is, with the lining side out, you're going to fold your straight edge with your magnetic flap on it up toward the right side of the bag. Okay. And all these dimensions again are on the blog post, but you're going to fold it up about, let's see, about 6 1/4 inches or so. Okay. That gives you a little bit of overhang from your flap so that you have this little edge peeking over. And that's going to align your magnetic snap pieces according to the pattern instructions on the blog. So you're going to fold that up, and then you're going to sew, following your previous top stitching, all those layers together to create your pocket. After doing that, and this is a really thick seam that you're sewing, so just be aware, 2 layers of cork, 2 layers of lining fabric, and if you wanted to add any kind of fusible fleece or low loft batting, you would have that to contend with as well. You don't have to add that. I kind of added mine as an afterthought to give structure to the bag. So prior to adding your lining piece, you would fuse your fusible fleece either to the lining piece or use some spray adhesive on some low loft batting, put that on your cork piece prior to sewing your entire, pillow, if you will, together. So those are going to be some thick seams, but nothing your machine and a sharp needle, Microtex or top stitch needle can't handle. So you will sew along your little pocket, turn it right side out, and then fold your flap over to the front, aligning your magnetic snaps, and done. You have your envelope clutch that you can use to house all of your Valentines, or use it for a night on the town to go grab a coffee, put a couple of things inside. You know, it's pretty roomy. So there you go. Also, something else to note with my prototype, if you're using a directional print, make sure you take that into account when you cut your lining fabric. Notice how all of my hearts are sideways. I know. We all make mistakes, right? You'll forgive me, right? I make the mistakes so that you don't have to. All right. So my next project using our Conversation Heart collection is this cute little heart-shaped bookmark. And I will say that one of my daughters put this together entirely by herself. That's not true. Totally with me right next to her every step of the way. But she did the sewing and is very proud of this bookmark and uses it all the time. So it's a great project if you still have kids around, grandkids around, neighbors around who are still out of school for the next couple of days before they go back from winter break. This is a cute little project that can keep them busy. They get to pick the embroidery design of their choice as long as it's around that 2-inch size, and really cute. You can gift this to somebody for Valentine's Day along with a little book. You can make it for a kid or an adult, but this is really kid-friendly, and my daughter was really proud of making this. It's not perfect, but you know what? It was a great starter project, and I'm sure that you all can take it and run with it. So this is made of Sulky felty for the outer pieces, and then just a cute, you know, Valentine themed lining fabric for the inside. So if you grab up a Sulky variety pack, or assortment pack rather, of felty, you'll have lots of colors to choose from if you grab up that rainbow assortment. My daughter really liked this neutral color, so she was super understated with her choice, but you could go with pink, purple, reds, all kinds of great colors that coordinate with the Conversation Heart palette. All right, so again, I'm using a magnetic hoop here for the embroidery, but you could certainly use your spring-loaded hoop as well. So I have my felty in the hoop with my Sulky Stiffy stabilizer, and I'm just going to get right to the embroidering. So I imported this design into the machine. This is the one that she picked, You So Fine. I know, super cute, with the Conversation Heart style. And then we just begin the machine embroidery, as simple as that. You want to, again, be sure to be clipping those jump threads with each thread change. It's a dense design because of all of the background stitching, but Sulky felty is manufactured to accept tons of thread work. It is such a great product. You can embroider super dense designs, even designs with very thick thread as well, such as you know, Sulky acrylic filaine thread works really great on felty and has kind of the same texture to it as the felty too. But yeah, it doesn't pucker or buckle under all of that thread work. It's just really a fantastic product. So here we are clipping our jump threads with our curved tip squeezer. My daughter loves those as well, and I have like 4 pair of them around my sewing room. But the great thing about these is, see this curved tip? When you go in to clip those jump threads while your fabric's on the hoop, you aren't risking poking through your fabric or slicing through the thread that you've already embroidered. You can get in there to those little nooks and crannies and clip those jump threads, no problem. So if you don't have one of these, we have them at sulky.com. They're relatively inexpensive, $6 or $7, I want to say. and they're life-changing if you do a lot of machine embroidery. All right, so after our embroidery is complete, we are simply going to tear away that stiffy stabilizer, clean up our jump threads along the back of the work, and we're ready to start constructing the simple little bookmark. So we are going to mark our first square that we embroidered, making sure that we have enough room for our little heart without cutting off our embroidery design. So you can see, instead of centering my design inside of my square, I positioned it a little bit toward one of the corners, placing it on point. So use a chalk pencil or your favorite removable marking pen to mark your square that's been embroidered. And then you need another square for the back of your bookmark. This is going to sort of hug the pages of your book like another little pocket. All right, so now we're going to just mark a little heart on the right side. So my daughter marked the top of the heart and then kind of rounded the corners as well. I don't know that I'd really recommend rounding those corners. You might want to just have your scalloped heart edge along the top. And I only say that because it made sewing these corners a little bit more difficult. She had to start sewing down here to account for the curve of the heart, and then go across and sew to right here. You see what I'm saying? So had she just left this scalloped edge of the heart and had this go across to meet the back side, we would have a little bit more coverage there. But it still works just great as a bookmark, and it has more of a heart shape, which was really her point in doing that. So I leave that choice up to you, how much you sort of want to cut off of your little heart shape there from the corner. So now we want to go ahead and cut those same dimensions using our cotton lining fabric. So we've got our felt heart for the front side, our felt square for the back side, and then those same pieces out of our lining fabric. And again, if you're using a directional print, take that into account here as well. And then we're just going to sew these two like we did pretty much for that clutch. We are going to sew around the perimeter, and we are going to leave a little opening for turning. So we're going to do the heart, and we're going to do the square in the same way, leaving that opening. And then we want to kind of trim up our seam allowances, especially if you're working with a newbie or a kid making this. You can do a little bit wider seam allowance and then trim it away afterwards so that when you turn it right side out, you have a nice clean edge around those curves. You can also clip into those curves a little bit so that the fabric kind of relaxes when you turn it right side out, and you have a nice curved heart edge. Oh, also leave that opening seam allowance nice and wide so that you can turn it to the wrong side and close it up with your top stitching. So here we are top stitching our square, and you see we used a lot of clips for that opening because using Clover Wonder clips is really fun. I find them in my kids' room a lot. I'm like, what are you doing with this? Why do you have this? Why have you stolen it from me? They just love using these little clips, so we used a lot of them. But you want to clip your opening shut and go ahead and top stitch your square and top stitch your heart. Now we have the two components of our cute little corner bookmark. So now we're just going to place our heart on top of our square with the lining sides facing and clip it together, making sure to match that little heart corner. You're going to start and stop where it makes sense for you based on where that heart matches up with the square. And make sure to back stitch at the beginning and end of your corner because it's going to get kind of a lot of use going around the pages of your book. So make sure that you're back stitching at the beginning and end. Just follow your previous top stitching to secure your little bookmark pocket. And then we have our finished bookmark. Super, super easy project. So you can either go big today and create a cute little clutch. This comes together so easily. Again, you don't have to make it out of cork fabric. You can make it out of a quilting cotton and add a layer of interfacing so that you have that added structure to it. Or you could use some denim, some canvas fabric would look great. Something like that. You could piece together some denim fabrics. If you have some jeans that maybe are in a bag that you're going to be thrifting away at the beginning of this year, you can go ahead and rip those apart, piece them together. You'd have a really cool looking clutch, and denim takes embroidery so nicely. So lots of different options for fabrics. And also for this, you don't have to use Sulky Felty, but it's a really great kid-friendly / beginner fabric. Takes a lot of stitches without a lot of effort, and you know, just ends up looking so cute. I just decided that this would be a really cute kind of door treat holder. Add a little hanging loop to the top, fill it with some treats, and gift that away. How cute. And then it does double duty as your little bookmark. Oh my gosh. Okay. Love it. All right. I'm going to kind of take a look at the live chat and answer some questions, and make sure you are posting your questions and comments and great little emojis, engaging with the post in some way today, because if you do, you are automatically eligible to win our Conversation Heart Machine Embroidery Collection. And this includes 20 designs, 10 in the traditional Conversation Heart style and 10 in the modern Conversation Heart style. So 20 designs in all in this collection. All right. Yvonne says the clutch has my name on it. All right, she's making it. Perfect. I've wanted to try using cork fabric. This is an ideal place to start. Awesome, Christy. You know, we have a lot of other cork fabric tutorials on the Sulky blog. If you head on over to blog.sulky.com, you can just search for cork in the search bar of the blog, and you'll find tons of great resources for working with cork fabric, because I happen to love it, so I use it a lot. And yeah, super cute projects, not difficult either. Exactly. You know, we want to start off 2023 with some accessible, easy to make projects that will, you know, allow us to build our confidence for the rest of the year. And meanwhile, we can make our sewing resolution lists, and aspire to, you know, maybe make our own jeans this year, or, you know, go big with our first quilt or something like that. So it's really great to have these little projects where we can practice our skills, and have some instant gratification, right? And really pat ourselves on the back and be proud for finishing something, and not, you know, adding to our UFOs, right? Our unfinished object projects. Yes. Okay. Lots of people love using cork fabric, so that's great. Say the blog again. It is blog.sulky.com. I also linked directly to the cork fabric envelope tutorial in the description of today's post. I linked to the bookmark tutorial in the description of today's post, so you can head right to those pages from those links. If you're not seeing them, you'll need to hit the little See More button in the description of today's live stream. Click on that and the whole description will pop out. You will find links for the Conversation Heart palette, as well as machine embroidery collection, the blog posts, and all the products that I talked about today even that Olfa Touch knife. So if you are interested in that, you can grab it up really easily. All right. Love the candy idea to fill the bookmark. Great classroom gifts. Absolutely. Love that. You can hang it on the doorknob of all of your special people. So when they wake up on Valentine's Day, they have a little treat hanging from their doorknob. All right. Where did you get such a large amount of snaps? Amazon, actually. I did get them on Amazon, like 100-pack. I just went for it because I use them all the time. I'm pretty sure you can buy them in smaller quantities. Sally Tomato has great magnetic snaps as well, and they carry them in a lot of different finishes. On Amazon, you can really only find, the nickel, like super silvery finish, but Sally Tomato has them in gunmetal, antique, rose gold, so you can really customize your projects a lot better through them as well. All right, shared with my sewing buddies. Thank you, Yvonne. Good to see you. All right, always remove jump threads when possible. That's perfect. And yes, Karen, another great idea for placement. If you can print out a template of the design, it will be easier to place by taping the template to the bottom of the hoop with the cork in between. Great idea. Yes. A lot of times you can print a template of your design in the correct size. It's a great, great placement tool for your fabrics. All right. Learned my lesson to check that my design isn't upside down. Ugh, I know. I do that all the time as well. It's so frustrating. So having that little arrow on your placement sticker, if you don't have an arrow on your placement sticker, just draw one on there. And that just gives you another visual clue when you have your fabric in the hoop. Oh my gosh, is the design oriented properly? So I would rather, they say measure twice, cut once, right? For placement, measure 50 times, just to be sure, take those precautions. And, even when we take all the precautions, sometimes we still make mistakes. So the great thing is that we can come together here and learn how to recover from those mistakes and maybe cut down our fabric and make something else with it. If, all seems to be lost, right? All right, adorable sweetheart set. Perfect. Roseanne has never used a Sulky embroidery design, would like to try. Well, that is perfect. If you want to create some Valentines, grab up that Conversation Heart Machine Embroidery collection in either the traditional, or this is the modern collection. You can see the lettering is really what changes here between the modern and traditional styles. Here's the traditional one with the more kind of typewriter feel to it. And then you can grab up the entire collection, which has both styles included. So 20 designs in this one, and then 10 designs in the individual styles of collections. And then, of course, it also comes as a palette where you can get 10 spools of Sulky embroidery thread along with all 20 designs. This is really the greatest value because you're essentially buying the thread and getting all 20 designs pretty much for free. So a really great value. And then you get all of these great thread colors that you can use for this collection, as well as lots of Valentine makes that I'm sure you have in your queue to get started and finish in the next coming weeks. So I hope that you got some inspiration today for some great Valentine projects to get started on. And thanks for joining me on another So What? I will see you next week for some more great projects, tips, and tricks from Sulky. Happy New Year again to all of you, and I'll see you next time on another So What?